The big stations at both ends of the line each have a turntable. The fat controller had them made so that Edward, Henry, Gordon, and James can be turned around. It is dangerous for tender engines to go fast backwards. Tank engines like Thomas don't need turntables. They can go just as well backwards as forwards. But if you had heard Gordon talking a short while ago, you would think that the fat controller had given him a tender just to show how important he was. "Oh, you understand, little Thomas," said Gordon. "We tender engines have a position to keep up. You haven't a tender, and that makes a difference. It doesn't matter where you go, but we are important. And for a fat controller to make us shunt trucks, fetch coaches, and go on to some dirty sidings, well, that isn't the proper thing." Gordon puffed away, moaning. Thomas chuckled and went off with an incurable. Arriving at the terminus, Gordon waited till all the passengers had got out. Then, groaning and grumbling, he shunted the coaches onto another platform. "Oh, disgraceful! Disgraceful!" he hissed as he ran backwards onto the turntable. The turntable was in a windy place close to the sea. It was only just big enough for Gordon, and if he was not on it just right, he put the balance out of order, and it made the turntable very difficult to turn. Today, Gordon was in a bad temper, and the wind was blowing fiercely. His driver tried to make Gordon stop it in the right place. Backwards and forwards they went, but Gordon wasn't really trying. At last, Gordon's driver just gave up. The fireman tried to turn the handle, but Gordon's weight and the strong wind prevented him. The driver, some plate layers, and the fireman all tried together. "It's no good," they said at last, mopping their faces. "Your tender upset the balance. If you were a nice tank engine, it'd be all right. Now you just have to pull the next train backwards." Gordon came to the platform. Some little boys shouted, "Come on quick, here's a new tank engine." "Wait a Swiss," they said when they came near. "It's only Gordon back to front." Gordon hissed. He puffed to the junction. "Hello," called Thomas. "Playing tank engine? Sensible engine you are. Take my advice, scrap your tender, and have yourself a nice bunker instead." Gordon snorted, but he didn't answer. Even James laughed when he saw Gordon. Gordon. Hee. Take care, hissed Gordon. You might get trouble on the turntable as well. No fear, chuckled James. I'm not as fat as you are. I mustn't stick, thought James anxiously. As he ran onto the turntable later, he stopped just right to place the balance the table just right. It could now swing very easily. The fireman turned the handle. James turned much too easily. The wind puffed him around like a top. He couldn't stop. At last the wind died down, and James stopped turning. But not before Gordon, who had been turned onto a loop line, had seen him. Well, he said. Are you playing roundabouts? Poor James was feeling quite giddy, rolled off to the shed without a word. That night, the three engines had a moan meeting. It's shameful to treat tender engines like this. Go, Henry, get hoisted by an elephant. I have to go backwards and people think I'm a tank engine. James spins around like a top, and everybody laughs at us. And added to that, the fat controller makes a shunt in dirty sidings. Said all the three engines together. Listen, said Gordon. He whispered something to the others. We'll do it tomorrow. The fat controller is going to look really silly. The three engines had decided to go out in strike.